Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to What is Fabrizio Inking? That's not right. um, Thanks for popping in. This is a totally new setup yet again. I swear to God, every time I stream, it's a new setup, so give me a minute. So it's been a few months since. It's been a few months, so things get tricky. There we go. A little bit of music. Anyway, so this is what I'm going to be doing. Today I'm going to be inking page 6 of Horace H. Hoover. And here's the blue line. So what I do is I print these out I pencil them, I print them out on blue line, and then I ink from there. As I get settled, I'll also go over this. So these are the pencils. I actually did this on stream a long time ago. Shockingly, a long time ago. So I will be very slowly penciling this. This is page 6, and it's got a lot of little details. I have the Latin writing along the edges, but this one's going to take a bit of time. But I figured I would get this all on video. I have been recording my inks up until this point. So we'll see how it goes. I'll do this for an hour, and then we'll get back to doing what I do on Saturdays, which is nothing. Any questions, let me know. The thing about doing these blue lines is it shows you exactly what you penciled, but because of that you can be a little more loose with it, because you know what the original line was and you know it worked, so you can kind of experiment a little bit sometimes with these lines. Sometimes that's a bad idea, and usually you know what you can or can't experiment with. Like if you're gonna be working on somebody's face, it's probably best to stick to the original drawing. But stuff like bat wings or rocks or something like that, there's nothing wrong with experimenting with that. There are certain things that you need to draw for the first time in a comic book, depending on the story. You know, maybe you never drew a car or a horse or, I don't know, something. And then there are those things that you've drawn your whole life. You know, if you were obsessed with dinosaurs or something, and your school notebooks are filled with dinosaurs. Mine were very much filled with skulls, bat wings, stuff like that. So whenever I have to draw things like this, it definitely is in my wheelhouse. So this is going to be a bit of a spoiler, but I'm going to be inking a lot of these pages live. So I would say if you don't want spoilers, maybe don't watch these now. Bookmark them and watch them later. Because this is issue 4 of H.H.Hoover, and it kind of wraps up, you know, the big plot line that's been going on for the past couple issues. It's a bit of a longer book. It's 38 pages. I was shooting for 32, but, you know, whenever you get to the ending of a story, if it ends too quickly, it's pretty unsatisfying. So the more I tried to, you know, finish it like economically, the more I realized I'm like that it just ends too quickly and it'll just feel unsatisfying. Even if like the writing is the same, it just has to take a little longer to tell it. Hey, Psychotronics Crookin', how's it going? Thank you, appreciate it. Yeah, I can't wait to get this issue out. It's been a long time coming. Definitely the best work I've done yet, which is kind of inevitable. But because of that, it's just definitely taken the longest to do. There's, you know, there's certain metrics that you can use for a comic book to tell whether or not it's difficult to do. If you have a ton of characters, if you have lots of locations, you know, each of those things adds complexity and time. And for this particular issue, there's quite a few locations, new characters, big action scene, small action scene, and then like some dramatic character stuff, which that's always going to be tough to pull off, I think, in comics for most people. So I don't think I'm new in that, but I'm going to hold off on doing faces right now. I enjoy how thoughtful he is. Thank you. Yeah, he is kind of my favorite character. He's just a fun character to write. And sometimes you feel guilty because you're like, wait a minute, I came up with the character. For me to say I like him so much, isn't that kind of weird? But I think if you don't like your characters, then I think they're missing something. Like, he makes me kind of chuckle whenever he does things or says things. And I know that's a weird thing to say, but it's, you know, they really kind of get a life of their own, and they kind of almost surprise you sometimes. Yeah, Horse to me is like a good character. He's definitely not morally gray. There's no, well, I mean, there's a lot of other stuff going on with him, but like morally, he's a good character. I always jokingly say that, you know, my role models were Optimus Prime and Fraser Crane. Optimus Prime because he, well, amongst other things, I grew up on Transformers, but yeah, he's just a good character. He's always good, and there's no chance of him not doing the right thing. And then Fraser, because in the end he'll kind of pick the right thing to do. Not to mention it's one of the greatest shows of all time. I hope that Slurp fellow doesn't turn on him. There's so much you can do with Horace, so many mysteries he can unravel. I love that he's genuinely good. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'll tell you what. I've been thinking, do I just keep doing Horace H. Hoover for the next however many years or issues, or do I, start a new comic? I would love to do Horace, in depth, because there's so much. Like, I really haven't even started to get to the stuff I wanted to. But, having multiple books out there it's just a good thing to have. So I think I might kind of go back and forth between a few books. But I think Horace is going to be like a staple for me, for a very long time. Even though, whenever I go to conventions and I'll have a table, I can definitely tell some people, like, they look past Horace. He's not a typical superhero. He doesn't look like a lot of other things you might see at a convention. So some people, they're totally blind to it, which is unfortunate. But, maybe if I have another book that's a little more, I don't want to say mainstream, but easy to digest, that might make people a little more amenable to giving Horace H. Hoover a try. Frasier. That's so good. It's a great show. I rewatch it every, so many years. It's legitimately still really good. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I don't have like a million different titles and characters I want to do. I get really focused on a few of them. I think for me that's good, just because I write, draw, ink, color, and letter. It's a lot easier. I think it's better for me to focus on a few characters, because I'd be looking out at 20 years, worth of books, as opposed to 2 or 3 or something. I could get somebody to help me, maybe color. I've thought about that. That's probably the least, I would say it's the easiest thing to get somebody to help with. We'll put it that way. I've already established a coloring style, which is very, Bronze Age. To me, what comics look like. So I think it would be easy to find somebody to help color, potentially, since I have a lot of reference material for them. So we'll see about that. I'm going to try to ink a little differently than I normally do, just because I think it's a lot nicer to see one thing getting inked instead of me jumping around like I normally would. So I'll try to do that. Like, I'll focus on this guy. I haven't streamed in 2 months, which is pretty substantial. I do think that YouTube just likes to sort of pick and choose the channels it wants to recommend to people. And for a while, I was doing pretty good. I didn't change anything, and then YouTube was like, "Yeah, I think we're just gonna recommend your channel less," and then you see the views drop, and then you're like, "I'll get to it later." it becomes less of a priority. It's tough working with others on creator owned in the beginning until you find the right person. Yeah, I've met some cool people since I started, but it definitely seems like everybody's busy doing their own thing, and like matching up availability with cost it's just really tough. Everybody for the most part has a full-time job in addition, so just kind of doing it because we want to, but because of that, it gets tricky with schedules. You have a YouTube channel, right, where I think I caught it once or twice. You sell comics, I believe, like auctions, like live auction kind of thing. How is that going? I'm curious. I frequent some comic book shops, obviously locally. They look like they're doing okay, but man, it's hard to tell. I know today is free comic book day, so that's pretty, pretty busy regardless. Although I didn't go to that. I did just, I think last weekend, Saturday, I went to this comic book shop. It's a really big shop, probably the biggest in the area. And I was just going to pop in, get a few things, and I noticed it was a sale. It was buy 50 back issues, get 50% off. So I'm like, well, I could get a few issues or I could get 50 issues. So I'm like, yeah, I'm going to get 50 issues. But that's a great deal. I mean, I can't believe more people don't take advantage of that. It didn't look like anybody was. So I'm going to have to make a trip there every so often, just grab 50 issues. And then they had dollar bins, so I grabbed a stack of those. It was actually quite a bit of a haul. It's all old stuff, but that's what I like, so. One thing I like to do with these drawings is, whenever you're drawing, it's easy to get really overly fiddly and noodly. But when you're inking, you can kind of simplify it. And usually that's what you want to do. If you can find like a nice line instead of a bunch of little lines that don't really have any impact. Which is a good thing about inking your own work. You get another shot to fix something that you might have messed up, or missed, I should say, when you were penciling. Well, the claim sales for me is a quick way to trade, in a way. I'm more loose about the things, not there to make. Yeah, yep. I understand. I actually wish I had more room for comics. I don't have enough room right now. That's everybody's problem, I understand, but... Thank you. I've gone through some phases with inking, for sure. When I was much younger, I just used a pen and ink, the nib, which was, and I still do that sometimes, but when it comes to comic books, the style I will always like best is a brush. For me, I mean, some people use pens, some people use all sorts of things, but I just like sort of the big clean line of a brush. And there's actually other benefits that people, I feel like they don't talk about it as much. When you ink with a brush, the ink dries almost immediately, so you can really work on a page for a long period of time. If you use a pen, brush, or a nib, it kind of lays on the page for a while, and you constantly potentially smearing it just because it takes so much longer to dry. So the brush just it just penetrates quickly. I don't know what the physics of that are, but it's definitely true. Like for this entire thing, I will have to use a micron, probably for this banner. And chain links with a brush are a little too brutal, so I probably will use a micron pen for that. But I don't even use that for buildings. I try to use a brush for 100%. It's great. You quickly pick what line you want when you ink. Yeah, it's just inking. You just see things a little differently when you're doing it. I'm the one who penciled it, but you would think I would pick the same thing, but you just see it differently because every new stroke you put down with the ink kind of affects what's around it, so then that impacts that stroke you might add, or that shading or something. So it's like none of these live by themselves, and because of that, it's just by the time you get to the end, the overall piece should be very similar, but if you compared specific strokes, I mean, I don't know, 70% maybe. That's one of the reasons I really like buying original art if I can. You get to see all that little stuff that you don't realize. I was talking to somebody about Mark Silvestri and Dan Green, and the idea that I didn't know this, but some people say that Dan Green was the majority of that style. Because I've never seen Mark Silvestri's pencils, and then he very much changed his style. So it could be that Dan Green really gives him a completely different look, which happens for sure. Like Klaus Janson, if Klaus inked somebody, it was very much Klaus. There was no confusing inks if Klaus did your stuff. As opposed to, Al Williamson or somebody else. I was watching a video that Richard Friend was doing, who's a really great artist. Highly recommend his YouTube channel. He kind of goes through some artwork. And he's a professional inker for 20 years, worked with Wildstorm, did DC, a bunch of stuff. And he was saying that he thinks one of the problems with modern comics, I don't think he was being specific to indie, but is that people are inking their own stuff. And you don't get that occasionally, like lightning in a bottle of a great penciler and then a really great inker that the sum of their parts is better. And I have to agree, you know. It's hard to do now, obviously, but man, it would be great to see my pencils and have some other inker with a bit of a different style, but they can add to it. I would love to see that. Yeah, free comic book day. I'd have to drive half hour. So I'm like, not today. I mean, the books they have for free comic book day are, you know, they're very free. Generally nothing that I like. The first couple of years they did it, I thought it was really cool. And then I just kind of stopped caring, to be honest. I'm glad people go to it and kind of make it a thing, but one thing I noticed too for inking is Sandra Hope, who's another really great inker. She's still working for DC, I think, right now. It almost made me self-conscious that I ink really fast compared to other people. Most people are much slower and more deliberate in their strokes. So I said, oh boy, maybe that's not a good thing, that I'm sort of haphazard and run through a drawing. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Hopefully it adds a little bit of energy that might not be there. It's not so stiff, but economy of line is really, that's the key between the greats and the not so greats. If you see a Buscema pencil Conan that he also inked, the economy of line is just extraordinary. You know, a few little marks for the bicep and a few little marks for, you know, his chest, but it all works so well. That's the goal. I did see they came out with it wasn't an artist edition of Conan, it was called a Colossal something. But it's the same, it's an artist edition. They just called it something different. I can't remember. I just saw an ad not an ad, I saw somebody mention it in a YouTube review. I haven't had a chance to actually look at it to see specifically what it is. Thank you. I appreciate you popping in. Thanks. But yeah, a Colossal Conan edition. Sounded really cool. And I think it's Barry Windsor Smith, Buscema, whoever else worked on Conan, which I'm sure there's a whole slew that I'm even unaware of at this point. So this is the second time I started inking this, which makes it a little difficult. Because you definitely don't want it to be the third time. Something I've also been doing recently is, I've mentioned this before on stream, but there's something called the Mythic Game Emulator. And it's used for like solo role-playing games. But I saw somebody essentially write a story with it, and I've been intrigued ever since. So I got the book, I read it, and I'm not really great with like role-playing manuals or anything like that. But I made my way through this thing just because I wanted to know how it works and if it's something I could do. Now, I've never had any problems writing stories, but I just thought it would be a fun, not a game, but it's almost like turning writing into a game. And there's a random element to it. This guy has a mouthful of teeth, huh? Oh man. So I've been doing this for 35 minutes. I'll probably go for 45 and then head out. I'll be streaming again tomorrow though, for sure. I saw that Butch Guice, I've never really understood how to pronounce his name. Guice, I believe, Guice, died. Which was really unfortunate. He's a really great artist. I'll actually pull out the Ruse collected book that I bought, I don't know, 25 years ago or something. Really great artist. So whenever you get to this page in the comic book, this like ribbon or banner around the edge, there's writing on it, and it's in Latin. And if somebody wants to figure out what it says and translate it, it might be edifying for them. It's kind of like homework, which makes it sound way less cool if I call it comic homework, but it's okay. I live in Pittsburgh, and there was a pretty bad storm last week. Trees down, power out. Luckily, we didn't lose our power at all, so that's actually pretty nice. There's always in the back of my head, anytime like the power goes out or something like that, like you don't want it to happen, but you also like being prepared for things. And a while back, I bought these LED lanterns, and it was really funny. So I had ordered them off of Amazon. They came. Shoot, I tested them out. I'm like, oh, these are great. And then I'll put them away, in the closet or something. And I hadn't even gotten that far. It hadn't even gotten that far, and the power goes out. So, we went from not having any power, all the lights go off, to me just turning on the lamp and completely illuminating our living room and dining room. It was almost comical, but I'm like, I'm glad we lost our power, because that was just too cool. Because I look around the neighborhood, I look out the window, we're pretty high up. I look around the neighborhood, and everybody's house is just in complete darkness. And I know people are looking for candles or digging for a flashlight or something. And I'm like, you suckers. I have like a 50,000 lumen lantern right now. I didn't mean that. I don't mean suckers. I mean poor souls. Poor unprepared souls. Yeah. If I think about having to rely on like candles and things again, that seems a little insane to me. I could explain what this guy in a graveyard is doing with a knife and some candles, but that would be a spoiler, because everybody does that. He could be doing anything. Yeah, if I can recommend anything to somebody that's looking to draw a comic, and if you pencil and ink at the same time, I do recommend finishing all the pencils first and then jumping to inks, because you get away from it for a little bit and then you essentially get fresh eyes and you get one last pass to fix things, which it's pretty nice, because you can't keep redoing and fixing and redrawing. There has to be a point where that ends. Now, you can't fix like major things, but you can usually fix any proportional problems. Maybe compositionally, you can add more blacks. Yeah, this page is going to take quite a bit of time. Even though it's one big image, it is kind of 3-ish panels, really, when you get right down to it. It's a big like montage, but it's kind of broken up into 3 sections. And there's a fair amount of characters, and there's a lot of, we'll call it unique sort of architecture and otherworldly aspects. So when I saw Sandra Hope inking, and I saw that she's just a lot slower, not just her, but in general, we'll say people that are just doing the inking part of it are a lot slower than me. It just makes me think that, if I really took my time, I could elevate it even, the drawing even more. But you just get into this, well, then I'll take even longer to draw it, and then I'll take even longer to color it. And it just, you'll never produce anything. So you just got to move forward, and then whatever you learn for this time, implement in the next one, and just call it a day. I'm actually using a new brush. This is a Da Vinci 8404 number 2. I normally use Winsor Newton Series 7, and I usually use like either a 2 or a 3 depending. But I wanted to try a new brush. It's actually kind of hard to find. I found a place, I think they were based in the UK. But the crazy thing is there was no shipping. So I don't know how that worked. But I ordered 2 brushes, and it's been good. I can't really tell any difference between this and the Winsor Newton. So if you're looking for brushes, I would say either or. I think I got off topic. Yeah, the Mythic Game Emulator. And how it works is it's a manual with a bunch of sort of charts, and it's half writing, half playing, but you use these charts randomly generated, via rolls to give you basically like word prompts. And then you kind of see how those prompts fit into your story up until that point. You make the best educated application of those that you can. But it's like writing a story, and you don't actually know what's going to happen next, which is, it's pretty fun because whenever you're writing, I don't want to say it can get tedious, but if you want to be a good writer, you're not going to just hand somebody a first draft and just move on. You really need to, you go back to it, you work with it, you kind of massage it a little bit. I mean, unless you are I don't know, a savant, and you can do that, but this game emulator just lets you kind of have fun with the first draft, and it's more of a plotting first draft. It's like the beats, characters, stuff like that. You're not going to be writing a bunch of dialogue, but you could write down ideas for dialogue as you're doing it. Then you get to the end, and you'll have something that looks like it could be a story, and then you start refining that. So, like I said, it's kind of like a first draft generator, but it's a lot of fun because you don't know what's going to happen. So I tried that out this weekend. I really enjoy it. If I get good enough with the system, I might try to do it live. That might be interesting. And then you could see the whole process, writing. You'd see brainstorming, writing, drawing, coloring, inking, and lettering, all one comic. Sounds a little crazy, but so we did meet this character in issue 2. So we're sort of getting a little bit of his backstory or background, we'll say. Hey Kibu, how's it going? That would be a fun and wild ride to witness. Yeah, wouldn't that be fun? Again, I have to get a little better with it. But I think it would be interesting to see that. Were you out and about for free comic book day at all? Anybody? Is there anything good out there? Some of the books I got in my last haul, we'll say. I got a big chunk of Blue Beetle, because I'm a huge Blue Beetle fan. I got a bunch of X-Men. Geez, what did I get? I got a lot of different titles. Yeah. I got a bunch of Spectacular Spider-Man. Those were actually dollar bin stuff, but it's also like the Sal Buscema era, which he's penciling and inking. So it's not. I mean, it's definitely a distinct style, to me, that kind of the Sal Buscema Spectacular Spider-Man stuff always reminded me of. I'm blanking on his name. Keith. Keith. Eric Larson. Jeez, that was hard to get out. Yeah, whenever he came around, it had that very. I mean, stiff is a I think an accurate word for that stuff. Just a real stiff look to everything. It was like first Sal was kind of competing with John, his brother, to be more organic, but at a certain point he's like, no, I got my own style, and it's very specifically kind of stiff, and just kind of, I don't know what other word to use, because he uses a pen. It's kind of like got a dead weight to it. As to how it goes, it's as always Otis Elevator Baby. I had my ups and downs. I went to my son's tabletop gaming day with his school. It was a good time, but we decided to forego the... Yeah. As the years have gone by, the free comic book day. Just not nearly as enticing. I am curious, though, how well stores do during that time. If it really is a big draw anymore. I don't know how big of a draw it was. I mean, it seemed like a big deal. There's a place near us, New Dimension Comics, and I know Brian Michael Bendis was going to be doing a signing today. No offense, I'm not a huge Bendis fan, so, that really wasn't any reason for me to drive half hour or whatever. But it's still pretty cool, I think it's a good idea to, in addition to free comics, to actually try to book some talent and, have some other reason to be there. The one thing that I am doing, I'm noticing is, as I dig into the inks, and some of these pages I haven't looked at in quite some time. Like I said, you can fix things that you missed. The biggest part is simplification to some degree and adding more blacks to sort of balance out the page. Without a doubt. There are times that I know when I was drawing that I didn't lean into some of the contrast that I should have. I left it for future Fabrizio, and luckily future Fabrizio is still in a decent mood and not angry at past Fabrizio, but we'll see how that goes. If anybody out there hasn't bought my books recently, the Horace H. Hoover issues 1 through 3, I would say grab them now because I only have literally like, I think something like 5 issues left of each. That might even be pushing it. I gotta update my site. So I won't be reordering in quite some time. So if you've been putting it off, I would say grab them now. Also, I don't think I'll ever order them with the same covers for issues 1 and 2. I'm currently working on alternate covers, and those will be sort of the only ones so far. I've personally thought of inking as proofreading and editing for line art, for better or worse. Bold talk from someone locking in both proofreading and editing. Oh, I like that. I like that. Yeah, that's totally what it is. Catching all the little and big mistakes, because you're forced to kind of go line by line to inspect it. See, that was a much better way of putting it than I did. I'm going to hold off on that. Yeah, it looks like it's been about an hour, so I think I'm gonna call it. I did want to show that book, that Ruse book, just because it was such a, I would say formative, but that's not the right word. Impactful in a certain way. That Butch Geist book. This is where we're at. Still quite a bit to go, but it's getting there. This will probably be at least a 4-hour 4-hour ink. So this is the book. Actually, and still compiled. It's Ruse, Enter the Detective, right? And I remember when I first got this, you open it up and it is so good. Immediately, It's so good that, yeah, it's falling apart. That's how often I've referenced this thing. That when I was, and this was like, 2000 or something, I was always dabbling with drawing comics, and I got that, and I convinced myself there's no way I can draw comics. This is so good, and I'm nowhere near that level that I'm like, okay, you know what? The slim chance that I'll ever do comics is completely squashed after looking at that comic. Yeah, because it was Sherlock Holmes style character, which is what I wanted to do, something like that. And to see the quality of that and then the quality that I know I could do back then, I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing comics. So it's funny because some artists like inspire you to do stuff, and then some are so good, it'll really kind of crush what you're doing currently. And that was Butch Guys for me, for sure. It was many, many years later when I, really tried to do comics again. So anyway, great artist. Highly recommend you check him out. It's been fun. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it. I'm crossing my fingers that our tables are closer this year at 3RC. So I'm not going to be at Three Rivers this year. I had a work schedule conflict, so I actually had to cancel my table, which sucks. But I'll stop in for sure. Say hi to everybody. Yeah, it's kind of a bummer. But I am definitely going to be planning the November. I can't remember the name of the convention in Du Bois, PA. I'm definitely going to plan on that because by then I'll have issue 4 with me. I should have restocked issues 1 through 3 in theory. So I'll definitely see you in November, but I'll stop in for Three Rivers for sure, and then get a table for next year. It sucks because I have essentially there's a big convention the weekend of around that time, and sometimes it falls on Three Rivers, sometimes it doesn't, and depending on how that works, I can't make it. So I think it's gonna be 50-50 every year whether or not I can do it. But anyway, Du Bois SuperCon, yeah, I'm really excited. I'm definitely gonna do that. I'll have issue 4. That'll be fun. Thanks everybody for popping in. I appreciate it. If you have any questions, comments, let me know. You can always go to HoraceHoover.com, pick up resin model, comics, t-shirts, hats, things like that. And I'll probably be streaming tomorrow at 3 o'clock. So I'll catch you later. Thanks everybody. Bye.